There comes a time in life when the roles between parents and children begin to shift. For years, you were the guide, the one who nurtured, protected, and made countless sacrifices to help them grow into independent adults. You were the center of their world, the one they looked up to for wisdom and direction. But then, often without warning, something changes. Suddenly, the child who once clung to your every word now seems to ignore your advice. Your opinions are dismissed, your presence taken for granted, and in some cases, you're even made to feel like a burden. This shift can be deeply painful. It's natural to feel frustrated, confused, or even angry. You may find yourself tempted to list all the things you've done for them, to remind them of your sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the unwavering support. But the reality is, trying to demand respect through confrontation rarely works. In fact, it can push your children further away and deepen the rift between you. The good news is that there is a better path forward, one that doesn't involve conflict, resentment, or guilt. By making a few intentional changes in how you respond, you can begin to shift the dynamic and earn back the respect you deserve. Today, I'll share 6 powerful strategies that can help you rebuild that connection, not through force, but through quiet strength, consistency, and self-respect. Some of these suggestions may challenge your current approach, but they have the power to change the way your children see you and treat you. If you stay with me until the end, you'll discover how to reclaim your role, not just as a parent, but as a respected and valued presence in their lives. Let's begin. Would you like to see those 6 strategies next? Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the most common mistakes parents make, and especially as they age, is seeking their children's approval at any cost. You might catch yourself doing it without even realizing, saying yes when your heart is saying no, rearranging your life around their convenience, or going above and beyond just to keep the peace. All the while, you're silently hoping that if you just do enough, give enough, bend enough, they'll finally appreciate you, treat you better, or show you the love you've earned over the years. But here's the painful truth. The more you chase their approval, the less they respect you. Respect isn't earned by sacrificing your needs, it's earned by honoring them. When you consistently put yourself second, you're teaching your children that your feelings, time, and opinions matter less. And once they internalize that message, it's all too easy for them to overlook you, dismiss you, or take you for granted. Take Margaret, for example. She was a confident, capable woman in her younger years. But as time passed, she began allowing her children to dictate everything. When she could visit, what she could say, even how she was spoken to. "I just want to keep the family together," she confided. But in the process of trying to keep peace, she lost her voice, and eventually her children stopped truly hearing her. The first step to regaining your children's respect isn't confrontation, it's confidence. Stop acting like you need their validation. Set healthy boundaries. Say no when you need to. Speak your mind calmly and clearly, even when it's uncomfortable. You're not being difficult, you're being honest, and that's powerful. When you start respecting yourself, others will follow. And in time, your children will begin to see you not as someone they can push aside, but as someone whose presence, opinions, and boundaries matter. That's when true respect returns. Action 2. Don't argue, lead by example. When your children dismiss your opinions, talk over you, or treat you with disrespect, your first reaction might be to argue. You may feel the urge to defend yourself, to remind them of everything you've done for them, or to demand their attention and respect. But let me share something that could save you years of heartache. Arguing rarely, if ever, works. Think about it. When was the last time you changed someone's attitude toward you by fighting for it? Respect isn't something you can force through heated words or emotional confrontations. It's earned through quiet strength, consistency, and dignity. Respect is not won in moments of conflict. It's communicated in how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, and how you maintain composure when others try to provoke you. When you meet disrespect with anger or desperation, all you do is reinforce the very behavior you're trying to correct. You confirm their belief that they have power over your emotions. But when you respond with calm and steady confidence, you send a different message, one of authority, maturity, and self-respect. Take Frank, for example, a retired teacher known for leading classrooms with confidence and calm. At home, however, his adult children began treating him like an afterthought. They laughed off his advice, ignored his concerns, and dismissed his perspective. At first, Frank fought back, thinking if he just argued better, he could earn their respect. But it only made things worse. Eventually, he realized the power of presence over persuasion. He stopped arguing and started listening, genuinely listening. He responded with patience, spoke thoughtfully, and carried himself like someone who already had the respect he was seeking. Over time, something changed. His children noticed the shift. They saw a man who no longer needed to prove himself. He simply was confident, calm, and composed. That change in him created a ripple effect. Slowly but surely, their behavior followed. So if your children disrespect you, don't fight them for respect. Show them what it looks like. Stand tall, speak with grace, and hold your boundaries without anger. Respect begins with how you treat yourself. And when you lead with integrity, others eventually follow. If this message resonates with you, comment number 2 below to let me know you're still watching. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future content that informs and inspires. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the most difficult but vital lessons to learn as you grow older is that your emotional well-being cannot be tied to your children. As a parent, it's natural to love your children deeply and to hope they will reciprocate that love with affection, attention, and respect. But when your sense of self-worth starts to depend on their validation, the dynamic begins to shift, and not in your favor. Here's a hard truth. Even your own children tend to respect those who are emotionally self-sufficient. When they sense that your happiness hinges on their phone calls, visits, or approval, it creates a subtle but real pressure. Instead of feeling honored to be part of your life, they may begin to feel responsible for your emotional state. That pressure often turns into avoidance. They may withdraw, become impatient, or even resentful. And the more you reach out, the more it can feel to them like an emotional demand rather than a gesture of love. Let me share Helen's story. She was a warm, generous mother who poured her heart into raising her children. But once they grew up and moved on with their own busy lives, she found herself feeling lost. She waited for their calls. When they didn't come, she called them, sometimes daily, leaving messages, reminding them how much she missed them, asking when they would visit. Her intentions were loving, but the effect was the opposite of what she hoped. Her children began to pull away. They started seeing her as a responsibility, not a source of joy. Then Helen made a shift. She stopped calling first. She stopped centering her life around their availability. Instead, she filled her own time, took up painting, joined a walking group, reconnected with old friends. And slowly, the dynamic changed. Her children began reaching out on their own. They wanted to know what she was up to. They saw her not as someone waiting on their love, but as someone living a full and meaningful life. The message is clear. When you stop needing your children to feel valuable, they'll start seeing your value more clearly. Independence draws respect. Build a life that fulfills you, and your children will be drawn back, not out of guilt, but from genuine admiration. Action 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the most common reasons children lose respect for their parents is surprisingly simple. The parents allow it. If you permit your children to speak to you with disrespect, ignore your opinions, or treat your time and feelings as unimportant, they will continue to do so. Not because they are inherently disrespectful, but because people, especially family, will often treat you the way you allow them to. Setting boundaries is not about creating distance or conflict. It's about protecting your self-worth and establishing clear expectations. It means calmly and confidently defining what behaviors are acceptable and what are not. More importantly, it means enforcing those boundaries when they are crossed, even when it's uncomfortable. Take Robert, for example. A retired businessman, Robert was used to being respected in the professional world. But at home, his adult children treated him very differently. They interrupted him during conversations, dismissed his advice, and often criticized his life choices. At first, he let it slide, convincing himself it wasn't worth the argument. But over time, he realized that by staying silent, he was silently approving their behavior. He was teaching them that it was okay to disregard him. So Robert decided to make a change. The next time his son interrupted him, Robert calmly said, "I'll continue when you're ready to listen." When his daughter rolled her eyes at his opinion, he responded, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect to be treated with respect." And when they continued to push his limits, he held firm. "If you can't treat me with basic respect, I'll choose not to spend time in this environment." At first they resisted, but slowly they began to change. Why? Because Robert had shown them something powerful. He respected himself. And when someone values themselves enough to set and enforce boundaries, others eventually follow that lead. If your children don't respect you, ask yourself, are you allowing it? Boundaries are not walls. They're doors you decide who walks through. If you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. If this insight resonates with you, comment number 4 below to let me know you're still with us. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more empowering content like this. Action 5. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the quickest ways to lose respect is to keep giving to people who don't appreciate it. And as parents, we often fall into this trap without even realizing it. We give our time, our energy, our resources, our love, freely and consistently, even when it's ignored, taken for granted, or met with entitlement. We tell ourselves we're doing it out of love, out of duty, out of habit. But here's the truth. When you continue giving to someone who doesn't value it, you don't foster love or gratitude. You build expectation. The kindness that once meant something begins to lose its value. It becomes routine. It becomes invisible. And before long, the people you're giving to start treating your generosity not as a gift, but as a right. When someone feels entitled to your help, your sacrifices are no longer viewed with appreciation. They're seen as the bare minimum. And the moment you stop, they don't feel grateful for everything you've done. They feel inconvenience. That's when the relationship turns toxic, when your giving becomes a transaction that's no longer recognized or respected. I once knew a man named George, a father who spent his life putting his children first. He helped them whenever they needed money. He dropped everything when they called. He rearranged his life time and time again to meet their needs. And yet, instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints. His children didn't say thank you. They didn't check in unless they needed something. And worst of all, when George finally found himself in a tough spot and needed their help, they were suddenly too busy. Eventually, George had enough. He decided to stop offering help that wasn't asked for. He stopped overextending himself, and he started saying no when it wasn't healthy for him to say yes. At first, his children were confused. Some were angry. But over time, something shifted. They began to see that his generosity wasn't infinite. It wasn't owed. It was something valuable, something that could be lost. And that's when they started treating it and him with more care. If you feel like your children don't respect your time, your effort, or your generosity, take a step back. Ask yourself, are you giving too much, too freely, to people who don't value it? What would happen if you stopped? When you teach others that your kindness is conditional on respect, they begin to treat it with the gratitude it deserves. Action 6. Build a life outside of them. One of the most powerful ways to earn your children's respect again is to show them that your life, your joy, and your fulfillment do not revolve around them. As parents, we often spend decades putting our children first, devoting our time, our thoughts, and our energy to making sure they are okay. And while that kind of devotion is admirable and often necessary when children are young, the dynamic needs to shift as they grow older. If your entire identity remains tied to your role as their parent, they may begin to see you not as a whole person, but as someone who exists solely for them. People respect those who have their own purpose, their own hobbies, their own passions and goals. When your children see that your world shrinks when they aren't around, it can become a burden. They may begin to feel responsible for your happiness. Or worse, they may begin to view you as someone who has no life of their own, and their respect diminishes because of it. I knew a woman named Alana, a widow in her late 70s. After her husband passed away, she poured everything into her children. She called them constantly, gave unsolicited advice, and expected them to fill the emotional space her husband once occupied. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. Her children started visiting less. Their conversations became shorter. She felt more alone than ever, and it hurt deeply. Then Eleanor made a powerful choice. She stopped waiting for their attention. She joined a book club. She reconnected with old friends and began traveling with a group from her church. She volunteered at a local community center, and for the first time in years, she began building a life that was hers alone. And the result? Her children started calling more. They were curious about her plans, interested in her life, and more importantly, they respected her. They saw her not as someone clinging to them, but as someone vibrant, independent, and whole. So if your children don't seem to respect you, ask yourself, do they see you as someone with a rich, meaningful life of your own? Or do they see you as someone who's waiting for their next phone call, their next visit, to feel alive again? Because when you show them that your happiness is not dependent on their involvement, they stop seeing you as a burden and start admiring you for who you truly are. Final thoughts. Respect from your children is not something you can demand. It's something you earn, not through arguments or guilt, but through the way you carry yourself, the standards you set, and the life you build outside of them. If your children have started treating you with less kindness, less patience, or less consideration, don't respond with anger. Respond with change. Stop chasing their approval. The less you need it, the more they'll give it. Lead by example, because dignity and self-respect are louder than any lecture. Withdraw your emotional dependence, because self-sufficiency commands admiration. Set clear, firm boundaries, because no one will respect you more than you respect yourself. Stop giving endlessly to people who don't appreciate it, because your generosity only has power when it is valued. And finally, build a life outside of them, because nothing inspires respect more than seeing someone live with purpose and fulfillment on their own terms. If you do these things, something remarkable will begin to happen. Your children will start seeing you not as someone waiting in the background, but as someone standing tall in your own right. They'll notice your confidence, they'll admire your strength, and most importantly, they'll begin to respect you, not out of obligation, but because you've shown them you deserve it. Thank you for being here today. If any part of this message resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you. Share one insight you're taking away and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your comments inspire and encourage us to continue creating content that truly matters. And if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might need to hear this message. Your support means everything. We'll see you in the next video.